So Cardano is a finance-friendly blockchain, and in particular, after the Vasil hard fork, we are seeing more and more decentralized financial applications launching on the protocol, given the huge amount of benefits that are offered by Cardano in this space. So how do we capitalize? How do we build and how do we grow? Well, our next panelists will answer that question. Brilliantly moderated by Rez Pabani from the Cardano Foundation. Rez will be joined by James Wagner from Indigo Labs, from Jarek Hirniak with Axo Trading Protocol, Chetan Bafna from Ardana, and Elie Naba from Quantoz. This is a truly rockstar panel who will help unpick the details. Ladies and gentlemen, give them a huge round of applause as we welcome them to the stage.
Hi everyone, and welcome to our panel. So my name is Rez Pabani. I'll give you a bit of an introduction about myself. So I studied computer science. I spent the last 13 years working in financial services. I work at the Cardano Foundation, and my role there is to manage enterprise partnerships. So today's panel is all about building on Cardano, and we have some very distinguished panelists, including a very exciting announcement, which we're really pleased to share with you. Capital in the traditional finance world has been very centralized, and that's created some barriers to entry for developing nations and some other small SMEs that want to try and get access to that. Through decentralized finance and Cardano and our blockchain technology, we're seeing a real new era usher in here where we can see more efficiency, more transparency, and more accountability through the blockchain. We're going to talk about a number of different things. We're going to start by defining DeFi. We're going to talk about stablecoins. We're going to talk about regulation. And finally, what we think the future holds for DeFi. But to start off with, I'm going to pass over to James to introduce himself and to share a very exciting announcement.
Yeah, so I'm James. I'm the business development manager at Indigo Protocol. And we are on mainnet today. It's kind of a coincidence that it happened the same day as the summit. So they were kind enough to let me kind of take the floor here and announce that. So I'll just talk really quickly about I don't know where to start. It's been a whirlwind. I mean, we've been building for 18 months now. I've been on the team for a year, and it's just been go, 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 try to make this happen. And, you know, this week, actually, the rocket will launch at 3 o'clock UTC. So that's just this afternoon. It's just a couple hours. So, yeah, it's finally going to happen. It's been a whirlwind this week trying to just all the logistics of getting this thing going. But we're super excited. We're super proud of it. So let me describe really quickly what Indigo is. It's a platform for creating synthetic assets. You can create stablecoins, crypto synths, indexes, things of this nature. And the idea is that you are able to create, you're able to bring the real world onto the blockchain. Like our hashtag on Twitter is tokenize everything. And that's kind of our mission, is to bring the real world assets, the real world, onto the blockchain to give equal opportunity and to financial opportunities to everyone in the world. The way we do this is by creating a synth of them. So I will just explain that really quickly in the most simple way I know how. When you have things on the blockchain, you know, you can wrap them and bring them onto another blockchain. But when there's stuff in the real world, you know, how do you bring it over? You can't wrap the real world and bring it on. So the way you do that is you create synthetic representations, over-collateralized synthetic representations of these assets, and you can create a synth of it that is essentially tracks the price of the real world. So that is our mission, to tokenize everything. We're super excited about our stablecoin that actually will be trading in 3 hours. It'll be the first, I believe it's the first stablecoin on native assets, stablecoin on Cardano. So Cardano will have a stablecoin in 2 hours. Yeah. IUSD is a particularly interesting solution. It's actually a basket of stablecoins. So with that theme of synthetics, it's actually triple pegged to USDC, USDT, and TUSD. And the way it works is we take the median price of all three, so that with that basket of stables, were one stable to fail, IUSD would still keep its peg. So it's a really unique product. It's fault tolerant, triple pegged, and we're very excited to have that trading within a couple hours because Cardano needs it. The other thing we're very proud of is we are pretty much obsessed with being as decentralized as we possibly can, from everything from our tokenomics to our emphasis on the DAO. And something that was very important for us was to have, for Indigo protocol, to have on-chain voting, from day one. So we're also excited to say that, in a couple hours when we're live, we'll also have, complete governance. We'll have everything will be on-chain, all votes will be on-chain, and the protocol will be, completely DAO controlled. That wasn't easy, but we felt like it was important, and really excited to be able to say that.
Thank you, James. Congratulations. That's amazing news, and we're all really excited to see how that evolves over the next year.
Yep.
Amazing. Another round of applause. Well done. Continuing down this way, Jarek, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Sure. I'm Jarek. I'm founder of AXO trading protocol. What's AXO? AXO is a completely new way for decentralized finance. It's completely decentralized and completely trustless, but at the same time, it provides the compliance that you need, and it makes trading efficient. So I'm very excited that we are finishing the work on AXO, and we hopefully be following into the James and Indigo footsteps soon. I'm also CEO of Generation Lambda, high assurance software development company, and so happy to see all of you.
Thanks.
Hello everyone, my name is Elie Naba. I'm product manager of the e-money token that we at Quantoz are working on issuing. So Quantoz is a Dutch blockchain company. We've been in the space since 2016, and right now we're working with the Dutch Central Bank on obtaining an e-money license. With that, we aim to tokenize the euro and bring European liquidity onto the blockchain. Happy to be here, and Cardano is awesome.
Thank you. Chetan?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Chetan Bafna, and I'm the communications director for Ardana Labs. Ardana Labs is a two-part solution to build 4x on the Cardano blockchain for our community and for the larger trading ecosystem. We have a DEX solution and then a series of stablecoins which will serve as the backbone for this potential 4x in this new digital economy.
Thank you. Okay, so what is DeFi? Coming from a traditional finance background, and I think we have many people in the audience who aren't in finance as well. I think one thing would be good to define first before we get into more detail on the topic would be, well, what does DeFi really mean? And Jarek, I think that would be a good one for you to answer.
So to answer what's DeFi, we maybe should answer what's centralized finance. And centralized finance is some system where everything depends upon some central party not failing. And we all know it's not great, right? Like, a lot of people gave money to some, and there is no money no more, right? So what challenge decentralized finance tries to tackle is tries to remove this centralized counterparty and replace it with code. And this code better be, very secure, because now it's available to everyone to interact with. But if this code is secure, we no longer have to worry about this single central party failure. And actually, from all the points of view, from like a retail user to institutions, it actually brings us to the next stage how finance should be done, because we shouldn't trust somebody to be audited every month, or even sometimes every year, and then a lot of money around the globe follows the sun, and some banks are not solvent when the door closes. If we have all this proof on the chain of this quality of finance, then we can suddenly build the financial products that are going to last. And like everybody on the stage represents some form of that, and there is so much more of that in the Cardano community. And one thing that for sure from Cardano is we may be taking the turtle approach, but once we get there, it's going to last for many generations, and I'm very excited about that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think it's a really important point to touch on. Hearing from some of our other speakers over the weekend, trust is such an interesting thing. When it's there in a centralized system, no one really notices it. It's just there, and then as soon as it's gone, it's like the air is taken away from the room. And I think DeFi really helps us, and Cardano and the blockchain helps us operate in a very trustless way, which I think is spot on. One rationale we had for having this panel was some of the things that we've been thinking about after the Vasil hard fork in September, some of the new features and how Cardano, the protocol, has evolved to usher in this kind of new era of DeFi. Maybe, Chetan, you could talk a bit about how that's happened.
Sure, yeah. So, before Vasil, Cardano's network for us was a bit congested. There were bottlenecks in place, and it simply wasn't possible to build a DeFi protocol like ours because we relied on fast throughput. Now, after Vasil, we saw improvements in speed and the definitive foundation for scalability on the network, to the point where our Oracle can now report accurate price data back to our platform during periods of extremely volatile price action. And that becomes important for us as a protocol, that becomes important for all of you as consumers and as users of our platform. And we're able to scale. It's so exciting to be a DeFi builder now on this network, because we're now confident in the security of the network and confident in the security of our platform.
Amazing. Jarek, maybe could you touch on maybe some of the more detail behind that, like some of the features that were and functions that were introduced?
Sure. Vasil was the actual date where we enabled DeFi on Cardano, and there are two central pieces to that. First was CIP31. What does it mean? It's reference input. So that's how you bring Oracle onto the chain. And you need Oracle to reference the data, like in the scripts you're using from other parts of the blockchain. And CIP33, which was actually very mind-blowing, it's referencing the scripts. Before every transaction you create, you had to take this big chunk of code and put it alongside the transaction, so it was taking a lot of useful space. And transaction is only 16 kilobytes, even like Game Boy, it's much less. And you have to feed, like an entire financial transaction that with reference scripts, you just publish it once and reference that. And here's the mind-boggling thing about Cardano. You can create a transfer that has hundreds of transfers to different parties. Well, now you can do it for actual referencing with dApps on the blockchain. And that's fully mind-boggling. I think we should stop asking how many transactions per second your blockchain has. We should start asking how many transactions per transaction your blockchain has.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anyone have any other points, or why have you guys chosen to build on Cardano? Elie, maybe do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, I can
or
touch
James,
on that.
go ahead.
I mean, Indigo really wouldn't exist without Cardano. Cardano is kind of it's an interesting question. People say why Cardano? It's that's the only way Indigo could exist. We couldn't build it anywhere else. Some of the stuff we can do, we have a certain feature with our voting where the protocol is self-updating. No other blockchain can do that. Some of the ways our liquidation mechanisms work, because of the way that Cardano's transactions are deterministic, these liquidations are much more reliable, which is a property of UTXO. So that's another thing that makes Indigo unique. Another thing that's phenomenal, actually, is about what Indigo is going to have in a couple hours is we'll have CDP liquid staking, so that when you have your ADA locked up in a smart contract or UTXO as collateral, that ADA is still staked to your stake pool of choice, and you are still getting ADA returns on that ADA as it sits there. No other blockchain can do that. So there's just so many phenomenal things, just from features for users or just the way the architecture works, providing a better experience or a safer experience or a faster experience. Yeah, so to answer the question, why build on Cardano, it's like Indigo would not exist without Cardano.
And I would like to add to that, it's exactly same for Axo. You may not realize not building these decentralized applications how game-changing Cardano is, but the fact that you lock the funds in UTXO, this enables the compliance because you know not only from what party the funds are coming, but exactly like the trace that came, so we can literally color all the coins to be fully compliant. And then, like you can potentially replicate off-chain computation on the blockchains. But in Cardano, it comes as the package. That's the way you do things. And now you want to build, for instance, like a trading protocol that tries to compete with the centralized exchanges, which just put everything in one server, right? Well, now you can do that because you generated the proofs that that's what should happen. But this proof can be very complex. But the output of the proof to the validator can be very small, and Cardano enables you to do that. And like I've been waiting 4 years for the blockchain like Cardano to be able to realize the vision of the Axo protocol. So and like with James, etc. Like I think like there's so many like people, and it also makes so exciting the ecosystem, because like all these really amazing builders are coming together with their vision, and they're finally able to realize it in the way that actually makes sense.
Yeah, I just feel like it's just getting started too.
Absolutely.
Over the next year or two, the stuff that I think Cardano's going to have a reputation for a lot of features and possibilities that other chains just don't have, and that's not well known yet. But over the next couple of years, I think we will make it known to everyone.
Hey, look, I'm so happy that FTX didn't stay at the end.
Very good. One thing I'd like to understand is when it comes to managing your protocols, how are you, and one thing I hear all the time about Cardano is the community. And we have such a vibrant community, an active community. How are you guys engaging with your community? Elie, I don't know if you want to take that one first.
Yeah, sure. I'm actually part of the community member of the Middle East, so shout out to Nadim Karam, community founder. And the thing about Cardano is that you feel, let's say, this strong sense of community. You feel that, let's say, you come together with your peers, you exchange ideas, you exchange new features of why this technology is so interesting and what's happening in the ecospace. And I think that it's a welcoming community that generally, let's say, wants to onboard new people, teach them why we're passionate about this technology and why we chose to build on, let's say, Cardano. And what makes Cardano, let's say, different from the rest of the blockchains. So, yeah, I mean, the community aspect is amazing, and actually you can feel that in the room, in this event, and throughout this weekend.
I have one comment. Nice pool. Because every pool you go on Twitter is like 60–70% Cardano. It's already very...
Yeah, very good. We definitely need to get some Cardano Summit polls going, and I'm sure we'll win all of those too. But
I think, just real quick, I think a big part of, when you're looking at the community and the Cardano community, I think you should see yourself as the community. Absolutely. Because, like, for example, with Indigo Protocol or Ardana or Axo, I mean, like, this is not our protocol. It's your protocol. It is completely going to be decentralized. The DAO is the one that makes the decisions. So in a way, it's like you see yourself as part of the community. Like, I'm just a community member with the other community members, and we all kind of own this collectively. No one owns it themselves. It's owned by everyone. And I'm just a community member, with them in that process. And I think that's really important for when you're, talking to your community in the Twitter Spaces or on Discord or on, wherever. As I always remind myself, like, this is not my protocol. This is your protocol. This is our protocol. We're all kind of in this together. We're all community, even if you're core team or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And us at Ardana. We've open sourced all of our code. It's all on GitHub, and we did that because we recognize that the Cardano community is so engaged, so enthusiastic, and so ready to voice their concerns. So what better feedback can we get while we're building and iterating than from you, the public? So that we took that ethos in mind, and that's why we made that decision. And blockchain as a technology is built on iterative design, and that is so true, especially true in the Cardano community. And how this community changes and evolves over the years as institutions will come in is yet to be seen, and it's so exciting to us. And that's one of the reasons that we released, for example, the Ardana Academy, where we educated people on the basics of fiat currency, stable coins, and how Forex evolves. So with this iterative design, and iterative community feedback, we can see, a bright future in how we engage with these new actors that come into this space, come into this community in the future.
Awesome, thank you. So we're just going to move on into the challenges space. So, clearly, it sounds like we have a very good protocol. We have some really good technology. We have some great builders, and this today is all about building on Cardano. But what are some of the challenges you see in building on the protocol? Maybe Elie, if you wouldn't mind starting.
So I'd like to touch upon, let's say, the challenges on building on the protocol and, let's say, onboarding traditional finance on the protocol. So I think that until the moment we onboard traditional finance, what we're doing in DeFi or in any other, let's say, area of blockchain is just basically a proof of concept. So we're proving certain concept of what is possible with the technology and how, let's say, how any token issuer can issue a token and then create liquidity for his token through launchpads, for instance. But then here you see that, okay, maybe we should put, let's say, a rule, let's say, some way to manage who gets to issue tokens and how do we inform, let's say, our community or our investors about the risks associated by issuing that tokens. We've understood, let's say, how DeFi can eliminate counterparty risk, for instance, but we've also understood that maybe if you want to create a smart contract and then put it on chain, then maybe you should be able to, let's say, make sure that the smart contract runs properly before you commit billions of dollars to it. We've understood, like, say, that maybe if you want to, let's say, issue a stable coin, then that stable coin should be really stable and no systemic risk should be associated with it, right? And before we can, let's say, bring that credibility to our ecosystem, I think we'll just be, let's say, still playing around, testing out new ideas. But the thing is that right now, I believe that we're at a very, crucial moment. And I genuinely believe that traditional finance is very interested in joining this space because Mika came out, which gives a clear, let's say, guideline on how to be a token issuer. You have, let's say, the verification methods that were introduced by IOG that allows you to certify and verify a smart contract. You have, let's say, companies like Acredius who are working in the Cardano space who developed an algorithm that was able to, let's say, measure credit risk associated with each token issuers, so that gives the investors real, let's say, insight into what they're investing in and what are the risks that are associated with, let's say, such tokens. So I genuinely believe that, let's say, in the coming few years, it's going to be a very interesting time for DeFi.
Such an interesting topic, traditional finance. Am I right? But actually, it's very interesting. You should all very care much about that because most of you have a pension. Pension is an institution investing your money, right? And what a better way for them to invest the money by seeing, not just the proof of, not being solvent, just actually proof of the reserves, proof how the business is being done on chain, etc. And institutions would be happy to enter the space, but the space have to be ready for them. So what do they need? Well, first of all, they need compliance, and we are building centralized identity solutions, like IMX and Atala Prism, which I just mentioned too, but there's actually many more coming. And this is both beneficial to the user and to the institution. So the user gets a better KYC where the identity is not released right away, but for instance, only when there's a court or something bad happens, right? So it's more private identity solution. On the other hand, institutions, well, they know now who they're dealing with, so they can follow their compliance processes. And there is so much more behind that, because you may not realize it, but there's so many different levels of KYC. And there is not only know your customer, there's know your business, etc., right? So then by onboarding those solutions, you enable institutions to start, for example, exchanging value on Cardano, right? Or instead of Cardano on a Hydra channel or some other way, but you enable them to do that. And also institutions, you have to understand they're in very competitive space. They don't want Honda Civic. They want Formula One and the best one. So you want to be able to build the solutions that when they enter the race, they help them to win, right? And by them winning, absolutely, like everybody in the Cardano space wins at the same time, right? So that's, for example, like why this off-chain competition is so important, and that's why, like we have to go so far beyond the simple models of AMM, like constant formula market makers, etc., because we need to bring this huge knowledge that already exists, like stochastic finance, right? We have quants, we have the risk managers, etc. We have to be able to onboard all of them onto the chain and use those tools. Another part is just not on the chain, is the tooling itself. We need like the tooling that they can use, like, hey, this portfolio manager can use these funds. I also don't want them to buy these shitcoins that they can mine themselves, right? Like you have to have the full chain of compliance, right? It's like compliance in every institution. And finally, like there's like engaging with the regulators on the right way. So when this institution, for example, like thinking, hey, actually, this would help with X, Y, Z, right? That they have a clear path to onboard because like already it was followed and explored with regulators, how the regulators look at that. And I actually think, contrary, like despite having such an amazing, vibrant community, Cardano is one of the few blockchains that actually is ready for institutional adoption, and that's like very exciting in my opinion.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think in my experience from the Cardano Summit, I've met many institutions, financial institutions, and I feel like particularly in Switzerland as well, there seems to be a very kind of welcoming environment for blockchain and crypto, and I feel like there's a big wall of capital coming from various investments that's ready to come into the space, and I feel like some of the challenges and solutions you guys touched on, seeing that evolve is going to be really, really interesting. And one thing that I think will be important to getting some of that institutional capital into DeFi will be stablecoins, and I know James just announced his, but Jarek, maybe could you talk us through like why are stablecoins so important to the ecosystem? Why do we even need them?
So there are only two things you need to know about the stablecoins. They are not stable. They're not coins. But in all seriousness, there is a reason why we want stable coins, right? All of us can say like in a form perform an investment on the blockchain, right? We are not buying Hosky for Hosky to go to zero, even though like we all say that, right? At the end of the day, there is like a currency we use for a living, right? Where maybe like you want to buy a house, maybe you are saving for something. And at the end of the day, we want to have the most of the settlement currency. And settlement currency is the thing that you want to multiply, right? And you need to have it on the chain because, for example, like when there are times like now, like we are entering the bear market and we're already at the bottom of the bear market or close to the bottom, right? Then when it's starting to happen, like you have to have the ability to enter the assets that are safe. Also, so another thing to do with the stable coins, which is foreign exchange, so like the currency markets, they're humongous. So they're much less volatile than the smaller markets that are your investment. So you also need them for that, as you are trading, like you're going back into the investment and back into the stable coin. And actually, I'm so lucky to be sitting surrounded by 3 people who are involved in the projects developing stable coins. And who knows, in the future, we may have even like more stable coin, like an index of the stable coins.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, it's interesting. You say that stable coins are not stable. Yeah, that's because they're pegged to USD. That's a big part of it. USD is still the benchmark of stability in the world, but there's, you can get into things like stable value coins. So they aren't necessarily pegged to USD directly. There's other things that you can do, because at the end of the day, that is what the value of a stablecoin is. You can keep the value of what you have in the face of, be it inflation or disaster or volatility or something like this. Like you need a safe haven, and one thing I'm excited about in the future is yes, if you're thinking of a stable coin, you're basically thinking of something that is pegged in some way, shape, or form to the price action of the US dollar. But there's other ways you could do this. There's indexes, there's baskets, there's basically stable value coins where the value of that asset does not go up or down. It stays the same, but it's not pegged to the US dollar. It would be a more creative solution. And so we may or may not be thinking about that. Jarek may or may not be thinking about that, but you'll probably see some pretty cool stuff in the future, I would say. Just speculation.
Yeah. So we at Quantoz also have, let's say, a very specific understanding of the stablecoin market and, let's say, the crypto assets market in general. So we understand them according to the MiCA regulation that just came out. And inside MiCA, what they do is they create, let's say, they separate two types of stablecoins mainly. So you have on one side, the asset reference tokens that are, let's say, tokens that are issued to represent something that exists in the real world. And those can be, let's say, currencies or a basket of currencies. They can be commodities or a basket of commodities. But then the thing is about those tokens is they do not give the consumer any claim against anything in the digital world. They're just, let's say, indexes, tokens that are issued to index a certain asset. And then on the other hand, you have, let's say, e-money tokens, which is what we at Quantoz are working on. And e-money tokens are basically digital tokens, digital representations of the euros in your bank account. And it's not that they're a stablecoin, they're not a stablecoin, it's just tokenizing the euro, right? So we take the euro from your bank account, tokenize it, and put it on the chain. And once we give you let's say, a token that is issued by us, a money token that is issued by us, this gives you how would you call it? Yeah, this gives you a claim against us to redeem that token at par value, and this claim is guaranteed by the Dutch central bank. So let's say that's the highest authority, that's the highest financial authority in our market. So our coin will never depeg, it will never, let's say, be something where the value fluctuates. It will always be 1 coin equals 1 euro, and that's something that is guaranteed by the Dutch central bank. And if you are not able to guarantee that, then we go to jail, and that's, let's say, something serious. And we want to bring that, let's say, level of trust to the Cardano blockchain, and then use that to empower, let's say, DeFi solutions, use that to allow, let's say, token issuers in Europe to start issuing tokens, raising funds for their SMEs, creating, let's say, bringing the real markets into blockchain. And I think this is very essential, and this will be, let's say, a catalyst for, let's say, the mass adoption of DeFi.
Perfect. Yeah, and just touching on, kind of what we see in DeFi as a decentralized stablecoin, right? We find that there are different models out there, of course, and they've been touched on here by the rest of the panel. And looking at, say, the biggest centralized entities like USDC with Circle and USDT with Tether, we find that in addition to those, say on the Ethereum side, right, we also have DAI, which is a collateralized stablecoin that uses a large portion of the assets that are collateralized in it are other centralized stablecoins. So DAI, for example, has a potential vulnerability in the case of insolvency. It's not truly decentralized, but building on Cardano, building fresh collateralized stablecoins, there's an opportunity here for us to really be discriminate about which assets are able to be collateralized. And this is the opportunity to unlock our value of our ADA, really, and put that first and foremost and protect the security of our respective platforms here that are issuing collateralized stablecoins. And us at Ardana, we believe that we can launch DUSD, our first stablecoin, in Q1 of this upcoming year. So we're incredibly excited to see the community feedback and, of course, IUSD, how those play over.
Awesome. And clearly it sounds like everyone has some sort of like regulatory aspect to this. We're, getting into stable coins. We're talking about, currencies issued by governments, and obviously talking with the Dutch central bank. It'd be interesting, maybe Chetan, to start with you. What do you see the regulatory landscape? You talk about what does it feel like? Are you talking to regulators yourself? How are you engaging with them?
Sure, yeah. So make no mistake, regulation is coming. I mean, we've seen events in the broader market that lend to the need for regulation. But where is that regulation going? It's primarily going to be the centralized actors that are regulated. We've seen abuse of customer funds by, say, centralized exchanges, but true DeFi and DAO structures are going to be difficult to regulate fundamentally because of how they're structured. And in the United States, for example, we have something called the Howey test. which assesses whether something, an asset, meets the standard of being a security. And DeFi has proven time and time again that it can pass this fundamental test. And people in the US are free to interact with these different protocols, and that lends the opportunity for us here in the Cardano community to keep vigilant for any threat in our ability to interact with protocols that we so choose. Fundamentally, we have to educate regulators. We have to keep them informed, because even if those regulators already know, because fundamentally, if we can understand DeFi, their staffs can certainly educate them on DeFi. So it's up to us to ensure that we generate so much value in this ecosystem that we bring in the institutional players, the same ones that are there lobbying the older solutions to the same problems that we are addressing in DeFi. It's up to us.
I would actually argue there is already quite a lot of regulation in the space, because if you want, like if you're an association or foundation or some other entity building like a decentralized protocol, you can be fully compliant today. There's enough regulation clarity. It may be hardly accessible to the new people to the centralization space, but it exists. So it's very important that we all follow it. And just for instance, like the AXO token has been certified by regular authority as a payment token. And like I would suggest, like we as a community should care about it more. And here's my request to you, because you are at the end of the day driving force. Let me explain why. We need self-regulation. So like when, for example, you look in banking, it's not that they have so much regulation. That's not that way breaking. They actually understand that they need to uphold a certain operational procedures for this space to stay healthy, that there's a lot of self-regulation. And now, like all the best self-regulation that exists, everybody else has to rise to this level, because otherwise they're not competitive in the market. But who decides that the self-regulation is important? You as the users, right? Because, like you don't want to hold your, for example, like money in the failing bank. And the same idea, like you should apply to thinking about centralized finance, right? What self-regulation this protocol applies that makes sure that my funds are safe? Or what does it do to be more transparent, right? And the risk of the regulation is, if you want self-regulate, then of course regulator is going to come. Of course, they may not understand the space, they're new to it. And not only that, there may be, like ulterior motives, or not even like transparent ulterior motives. And the more regulation, the harder it is to enter the space. So a lot of really honest, good players can be regulated out of the market. And then DeFi just remains like a label that nobody can use. Because at the end of the day, you have to go to some centralized entity. Like there's like allegations in the FTX saga that there was some collusion with the regulators, and which would make basically FTX the only platform where the US, users could interact with, like DeFi. How crazy is that? And that's so important. We self-regulate first. That when the regulators come, hey, we need regulation for this. They're like, oh wow, they are so well self-regulated. Let's just adopt what they have been doing, right? We can create the norm.
I'd just like to say one thing. So why is regulation needed in DeFi? I mean, try playing a football game with no rules, right? Just try imagining that, okay, in a football game, you can come up to the goalkeeper, punch him in the face, and score a goal. And if this is, let's say, the type of game that we want to play, then yeah, sure, let's keep the regulators out. But if you want to play, let's say, on the big game, in the big level, then we need to work with regulators, and we need to regulate the space, and we need to understand, let's say, what is possible and what should be done and what should not be done, because it will bring systemic risk. Luna did not fail because the protocol acted the way it, let's say, against it the way it should have acted. It failed because there was inherent systemic risk in the system, and the systemic risk caused the explosion. But then the protocol acted exactly as it should have acted. And once we learn to, let's say, separate risks, once we learn to, let's say, separate, let's say, exposures, and bring those ideas that have kind of working in traditional finance, bring them into DeFi, then I think we'll have, let's say, a nice game to play. Yeah.
Perfect. And maybe just maybe a final word from each of you. What do you guys see happening in the next 12 months in your respective protocols? Like, what can we be looking out for? Maybe just 30 seconds each.
Sure, yeah. So as I had mentioned before, we're excited to announce, DUSD is coming, and it's coming soon. We believe Q1 is going to be our window. And, above all, we have to understand that this is going to be the first. There are going to be other stablecoins that come into this ecosystem, and we hope to be a mover in that and a collaborator in that space, providing solutions for all of you.
Yeah, over the next 12 months, I would say I'm excited and also paranoid, because 2022 hasn't really been an awesome year in many ways. There have been a lot of people who have lost money, like preposterous amounts of money, and this is happening repeatedly. So the chickens might come home to roost a bit there. I just don't know what it's going to look like. But I'm optimistic because, JP Morgan put out a tweet and said, like, every one of these disasters has been because of a centralized hand. So it's clear that people are seeing the theme there. And I'm really excited for Indigo, Axo, Ardana, and just true DeFi on Cardano over the next 12 months. I think next year will be a much different ecosystem.
Launch, adoption, world dominance. And by world dominance, I mean us as a Cardano community having the best platform to trade on, and the one where actually finally a lot of financial institutions can come in and start using as well. So I'm absolutely excited for the next 12 months.
For Quantoz, it'll be basically issuing our e-money token on Cardano, and that's something that I personally am very excited about and looking forward to. So yeah. Amazing.
Well, just to summarize here, I think we started with defining DeFi. It feels like there's a lot of institutional capital ready to come into the space. We've got our amazing panelists here, which are building these decentralized protocols, which will welcome all that capital and start distributing it to those in need, building on those kind of social and economic systems that we can do on the blockchain. And it sounds like we've got a really, really exciting future ahead of us in Cardano and on our respective blockchains. So thank you very much to my panelists, and thank you, and everyone enjoy lunch.
Thank you.